Hi, and welcome to a brand new video. Today we're going to be tackling the sorted vowel string problem. In this problem, we're given an integer n, and we need to return the number of strings of length n that consist of only vowels that are in alphabetical order. So for example, in the second example here, we have the length of the string is 2, and the output is 15 because of all these possibles. So you notice that these vowels can repeat, but in this list we don't have EA because E comes after A, not before it. So in order to tackle this problem, we first want to create a list of characters that has all the vowels in it. So I'm just going to create a private char array called vowels, and inside my method I'm going to create a new char array val, and it's going to have all the vowels, and I'm going to put them in order because this order is going to help me determine whether it's alphabetically sorted or not. And then I'm just going to set the global vowels equal to that. So now we've created this chart, and I'm just going to make this static. But now that we created this char array with all the vowels and it's in order, the next thing that we want to do is create a recursive function. This is because what we can do is we can create this function to create the string for us. So this string will add on a letter if that letter is later in the array or later. So for example, if I start at index 0, then the recursive function will create a string with index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But if, let's say, I was in index 3, then it'll only create a string for index 3 and 4. So in this recursive function, I'm going to make it private, and I'm going to make it void. It's not going to return anything. I'm going to just call it count. It's going to be taking in 3 parameters. The first parameter is going to be actually 2 parameters. The first parameter it's going to be taking is the integer n, because we need to know that inside a recursive function. And the second parameter it's going to be taking is the index of the character inside this vowel array. If we have the index, then we can make sure that the next letter is always the same index and everything after. When we reach this count recursive function, there's 2 possible things that could happen. First, n is equal to 0, because every single time we're calling the recursive function, we've added a character, so we're decreasing n by 1. So if n equals 0, that means we finished the string. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a counter variable at the very top, and we're just going to increase counter by 1. So counter is going to be the number of strings. The second condition that happens is that n is not equal to 0. So that means we need to iterate through the vowels array and add it to the string. So remember, we can't iterate through the entire one. We just start at the index that we have in our parameter, and we go from index all the way down to the rest of the way. So we have for int I equals index, I is less than vowels.length, I plus plus, and we're going to just call count of n minus 1 because we've added a character, and we're just going to be putting I in here. So you might be wondering, why aren't we keeping track of the string? Well, that's because we don't need to keep track of the string. We don't need a list of all the possible strings. We just need to know how many such strings are there. So we don't need to have a string inside this in this function. We will need to care about what the string is as long as it's valid. And this will make it valid. Now that we've successfully set up our recursive function, we need to actually call the function. So we can call this function for every single vowel inside the character, because it can start with because the string can start with this A, E, I, O, or U. So that means for char C actually we need its index. So let's do a normal for loop, I++. We're going to be calling count on n-1 because we technically already added a character. And we're going to be calling I. And then here, and I'm just going to remove this parenthesis. Here we're just going to return the counter. So here it seems like we have a variable. So I'm just going to make this static. And seems like we also have an error here, so I'm just going to make this static as well. So let me just quickly refresh what we did here. We created a character array of all the vowels, and then for each vowel we're going to call a recursive method because each of these can be the beginning of the string. And then we're going to return counter, which is how many strings we created in our recursive function. In a recursive function, we have the base case that n is equal to 0, in which we successfully created a string, or we need to iterate through the vowels from the current index to the end of the array. Because this is sorted, that'll ensure that our string stays in alphabetical order. And then we can just call the recursive function by subtracting n once. So if I run this function, run this program, you notice that we have 5 for 1. And that's exactly our first example here. If I run 2 over here and I press play, you notice that we got 15, which is exactly what we got here. So I hope that you learned how to use recursive in order to solve this problem, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.